What's up, guys? It's time for another dose of quick reviews. Today I'm focusing on TV shows. So these are all the TV shows I've watched over the year. I've done a couple of these so far, which should be on my channel by now. So let's get straight into it. First up, Chernobyl. Chernobyl, I've done a full review of this. You can go check that out on my channel, so I'm not going to say too much. It's brilliant. I like how it treated it as a horror. I liked how it was really visceral and serious. The tone was just palpable at times. The acting was really good. Cinematography was really good. Just absolutely brilliant. This is going to win every award that I possibly can. Go check out my full review for more. But I really, really like Chernobyl. Bodyguard. So Bodyguard, BBC show. I think in America it's actually classed as a Netflix show, but it's a BBC show. So Bodyguard, about, well, a bodyguard of I can't remember what her position was. It was like the Home Secretary or something like that. But essentially, there's terrorist acts going on, terrorist threats going on. He's hired to be a bodyguard. There's the whole conspiracy thing going on behind the scenes. I won't get into that too much. I thought it was alright. As a BBC show, co-produced by Netflix, it looked better than a lot of the normal BBC shows do. Richard Madden and Keely Hawes were great in the show. Well acted across the board, really. The storyline was a little iffy here and there. It never really... I didn't like it as much as most people liked it, but it is good. There is a good thriller element to it. It's actually, I think it gets better as it goes along. The first 2 episodes are a little on the slow side, and then you get a big twist kind of event moment, big surprise moment about halfway through, and then the show goes on from there. And again, it is a thriller. It plays out like a long movie, essentially, but the build-up is a little on the slow side. There are twists and turns, there are surprises. I liked the ending quite a bit. What the actual resolution was, I thought was quite good. The characters are interesting. They have dark secrets and dark pasts. There's more to them than just their job and what they publicly display. So yeah, I do recommend the show. It wasn't my cup of tea exactly, but it is a good show. Billions, Season 4. Billions is a really underrated show. This is one of the best shows I've seen this year. Season 4, one of the best seasons they've had so far. If you haven't seen Billions at all, go check it out. Basically, it's about 2 people at its core, although there is a more expansive cast. But you've got Paul Giamatti, who is basically a law guy. He was a lawyer, essentially, at the core of it. There's a bit more to him than that, though. He's got a higher-up title and all that. He keeps changing roles. But he's a lawyer. He's investigating Bobby Axelrod, who's played by Damian Lewis. Damian Lewis, Bobby Axelrod, is a stockbroker, essentially. And he's not exactly doing things legally or by the book all the time. This season, I don't want to spoil everything because I feel like if you're watching this, chances are you probably haven't seen the first 3 seasons because it is a show that isn't getting all that much attention. It's not getting the attention it deserves. But this season, their dynamic is pretty different from what it is in the past seasons. There are new villains this season. There's a longer ongoing storyline this season. One of the things I really liked about this season in particular, which they haven't done too much of in the past, is that there are lots of twists and turns, of big surprising moments. There are literally moments in this season where my jaw was on the floor because I couldn't believe what they had done. And I'm really eager to see where the show's going. It is one of the best things on TV, I think. Of course, it is about stocks, it is about finance, it is about law and legalities and so on. The characters at the core aren't likable. They're not good people. So there may be 1 or 2 in there that are. So this isn't going to be a show for everyone. I'm not trying to say that everyone should watch it. It's also because of the content, it's going to be a little complicated for some people. Half the time, I'll be honest, I don't really know what they're talking about. But it's still fun, it is enjoyable. But yeah, go watch Billions, it's really good. Fleabag, Season 1 and 2. So Season 1 actually came out 2016, I think it was, then Season 2 was this year. So Season 1 I thought was good. The characters are good, they're very funny, enjoyable, very grounded and realistic as well. It's classed as a comedy, but there's just as much drama in there as well. There's actually like really dark elements to this as well. So the main character at least, who I believe is just called Fleabag, it's fascinating that the characters in the show don't actually have names. So the characters are really detailed and there's a lot of depth to them. You want to explore them, find out things about them. What I liked in season 1 is that it builds up, and because it's no show, I'm going to spoil it. It builds up, and then there's a big twist about the main character that you find out that she's actually done something, and everyone throughout the show is always mistreating her and like looking down on her. They don't like her clearly, but they like her because she's like family, but they don't really like her. So the fact that there is this big reveal at the end that it then explains all of it, and then you question, oh well, maybe she kind of deserves it. I don't know. But anyway, to talk about the more recent season, season 2, I thought season 2 was brilliant, really good. This is a really special show. They introduced Andrew Scott this season as a vicar. He's brilliant this season. Really, really good. It adds a good dynamic to Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is the writer, director, and star of the show. Although season 2, I don't think she directed every episode of season 2. I don't think she wrote every episode either, but I could be wrong. But their relationship, their chemistry is brilliant. This season's very much her trying to change her ways a bit, trying to become a better person, it seems, and he's very much a key element of that. It also explores her sister's relationship with her husband and how that's going on. There is a time jump between the seasons, but this is just a brilliant show. It's not going to be for everyone. The comedy is dark, it is twisted at times. It's very adult. There's a lot of sex in there. There's a lot of bad language in there. So yeah, not everyone will like this, but personally I loved it. I think it was great. There's a running gag about a fox, so I thought that was good, a really good payoff towards the end. Check out Fleabag. What We Do in the Shadows, Season 1, based on the feature film in, I think, 2002 by Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement. Season 1, great, a really good show. It's about vampires. It's presented in a style, documentary, mockumentary style, similar to The Office. That's kind of the only negative I've got about the show, in that it is so similar in stylistically to that kind of thing, and that's kind of become like an age-old trope now. So that's the only negative I've got. But the three leads, Matt Berry, Kayvan Novak, and Natasha Dimitriou, brilliant. All three of them are great. It's interesting how it's set in America. It's an American show, but the three leads, none of them are American. Matt Berry and Kayvan Novak are English, and Natasha Dimitriou is Greek. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. But Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement are still involved. They're writing and directing. There's even a cameo here. But there are some big name cameos in this show. But it's about vampires, their lives, how they live in a modern society, how they can only come out at dark. Very funny. It is a comedy. There's some really good jokes in here. They really twist the idea of what it is to be a vampire. They explore that in good detail. One of the worries I had about this is how similar was it going to be to the film. At first, there are some big similarities, but as the season progresses, they start to dive into the characters more. They start to deviate more from the story. This is very much it's set in the same world as the movie, but it's doing its own thing with new characters. And yeah, I thought this was a really good show, and I'm disappointed it hasn't gotten all that much attention. So yeah, check that out. Jessica Jones Season 3. So Jessica Jones Season 3, the final season, sadly. It's also the final Marvel show on Netflix. I've done a full review of this. I do want you to go and check that out. That was great. This season I thought was great. Plain and simple. Better than Season 2. Season 2 was disappointing, I thought. Not quite as good as Season 1. One of the things I liked about this season is that there was a new villain in there. The villain was really compelling, really just intimidating, and I thought it was impressive how they done it, because the villain is just a murderer. He's not got superpowers. He's very much a normal guy. So to make him a threat to this superhero detective was really quite impressive and really well done. There's also a thread going on with her sister, who now has superpowers and is now trying to become a vigilante hero. I thought that worked really well. It's just a really good season of TV, I thought, and as a good way it wasn't meant to be the end of this show, clearly, but it does wrap up pretty well, I think. So go check that out and check out my full review for more details on that. Modern Family Season 10. So Modern Family, if you would ask me a few years ago about Modern Family, I would have said this is one of the greatest comedy shows ever made. Sadly, it's went on a little too long. The quality has dropped. And in recent seasons, the quality has like a stark comparison to what it was in the first few seasons. So much so that at times it's just not good anymore. I think the show writers have clearly just ran out of things to do. The characters are still great, the acting's still brilliant, there are still some really funny moments in there. But in terms of storylines, they are repeating themselves in places, they are lacking in originality at times, it's not as poignant, it's not relatable as much. The characters do feel like they are more caricatures of themselves rather than fully fleshed out characters now. And yeah, some of the characters almost feel like they're spoofing themselves from earlier seasons rather than being fully developed and so on. It's disappointing to see where this show has gone, but I believe season 11, the next season, is going to be the final season. So I'm glad it's getting to an end. Initially I thought this was going to be the final season, but then they renewed it. And you can tell that even the writers kind of thought this was going to be the final season. The storylines that are featured in this one, clearly they were going to lead up to some sort of conclusion. And if this was the final season, it would have been a decent way to end, but just not in anywhere near as good as the quality of the first few seasons. And it's disappointing that this has happened. But it happens to a lot of shows that outstay their welcome. Hopefully the final season, knowing full well that it is the final season, hopefully that can get their creative juices flowing and they can actually go in there and end on a big, good note. Stranger Things Season 3. Great. A great show. I think probably the best season, maybe? It's better than Season 2, so that's that. But this season, it's the kids that are a little more grown up now. They're well into their teen years now. They're trying out all this romantic stuff going on there. They're all trying to figure out who they are. Meanwhile, the Russians are coming, and it's taking influences from films like The Terminator and Gremlins and all these other 80s movies. The references, by the way, sometimes they're a little on the nose, sometimes they're a bit more subtle. The visual look and style of the show is brilliant. It's clearly paying homage to these films just as well there. It's just a really good show. 8 episodes, I think it was. Really well paced. It feels like a long film. The actual main plot I thought was more interesting this season than it was in the last. But it is kind of repeating itself. It is kind of just saying, right, here's some science fiction stuff. Here's a monster. Now the characters discover the monster. The characters have to take down the monster. And that's kind of what this is happening. So hopefully with the next season, Season 4, which I believe is meant to be the final, hopefully they can change the formula a bit and actually do something a little different. But of course they can't do something too different because then that'll risk losing the charm and the tone that they've got going on. But the acting was great this year. Millie Bobby Brown is really, really good. And each year she's really good. So yeah, she's going to be a big star, I think. David Harbour was fine as Hopper. I actually think this is probably his worst performance as Hopper, to be honest. There's been a lot of controversy about his character, and I totally get it. But yeah, his character's a little iffy this season. But I do like some of the stuff they've done with paying homage, like I said, to the Terminator. I like the overall arching story this season. I like the new characters introduced this year. So Maya Hawke is a brilliant new character that they've brought in. She is basically, she works at an ice cream store. She's a kind of love interest for one of the characters. There's a good twist with her character, which really, it's really well done, I think. And yeah, hopefully she sticks around. My big concern now, though, is that the cast is getting really quite big. And this season does tackle that issue in some regards. But because the cast is so big, they've actually brought them off into their own groups, it seems. So you've got a storyline focusing on 2 characters here, a storyline focusing on these characters over here, and then these characters over here. The problem is, a lot of these characters, the best things about them is when they interact with each other. Well, you don't really get that until like the final 2 episodes maybe, if that. So it's a little disappointing that way on. But again, what we've got there is good. I just wish there was a bit more interaction between the groups and the characters. Year of the Rabbit Season 1. This is another Matt Berry show, like What We Do in the Shadows. So this was disappointing. Yeah. There are some really funny moments in there, some really good moments in there. I thought the first episode was good, the final episode was good. Everything in the middle, not quite so much. The jokes were really hit and miss. Although Matt Berry, great. Whenever he's on screen, it was really good. A lot of the jokes that he does is really good, his delivery is really good, but it feels this was a little too farcical, a little too tongue-in-cheek for my liking, and it felt like they were being vulgar and crass just for the sake of it. It felt like, oh, let's say a bad word here, that's funny. And yeah, it didn't quite work that way. So, and of course at first that kind of gets off, there is like a shock value to it, but they kept relying on the same gags throughout the show, and the overarching story wasn't that interesting because it was like 25-minute episodes. They couldn't fully develop the story, I don't feel like. So the final episode, when they're actually taking down the bad guy, there's like a 10-minute scene where they're just explaining everything, and it feels so on the nose. Yeah, Year the Rabbit, I was disappointed by it. But it is only 6 episodes, there are funny moments in there. If you don't know what it is, it's a Victorian set detective show, basically, about a group of detectives, obviously, led by Matt Berry. Matt Berry is the best thing in the show. The side characters are actually more annoying than endearing. So, yeah, I don't really recommend this show, to be honest. And I don't know if I'll watch any more, if they're even making any more. When They See Us, this is a mini-series over on Netflix about a group of kids in 1989 who went to the park with a large group of kids. I think there must have been like 20 or 30 kids. And police came in there, broke them all up. They all scattered and ran. Some of them were arrested. And then it later found out that, that same night, a woman was raped. This is all based on a true story, by the way. So then they go and basically pin it on these 5 kids who didn't even know each other, never met each other, were only like 14, 15 years old. It's clear some of them didn't even know what sex or rape was, and they'd never done anything bad in their life, and yet they're getting blamed for it all. And it's 4 episodes, each episode an hour long. In fact, 2 of them are like an hour 15 and one's an hour and a half. Really good, really well done. It's very theatrical in its presentation. First episode's about the investigation into the crime. Second episode's about the trial. I don't want to say what the third and fourth episode's about because there are time jumps, there are different things that it's trying out and exploring different elements of these characters and their lives. But I do recommend it. It's tough to watch at times because there are bad things happening to these characters and they do not deserve it. So it's not going to be an easy one to watch. I do think it's an important show, especially if you're interested in the American legal system and how corrupt it can be and how there are big issues with it and how it doesn't always work, it doesn't always get the right person. And I think it does a good job of exploring that. So yeah, When They See Us, a good mini-series. It has been nominated for a bunch of Emmys. I do recommend you check it out. Fear the Walking Dead, Season 5, Part 1. One of the things I liked about the season is that it's trying to do something different. It seems timely that it came out around about the same time as Chernobyl, because one of the big things in this season is that they are right next to a nuclear power plant, which, of course, in a post-apocalyptic world, who's keeping this nuclear power plant active, and what happens when nobody's able to do that? It's scary. So the actual premise of it is interesting, is that they've got to deal with this while also trying to escape where they're from because of this. But the problem is they never really go into it being that big a deal. It just turns out there are certain zombies which have spots on them that you can't touch. So yeah, it feels like a bit of a wasted opportunity there. And I get that they want to try and keep it grounded to an extent. You can't have like all these huge mutants scanning around or whatever, but it would have been better to just explore it a bit more. This season, it has the characters from the last season, obviously, so that's a good thing because they introduced new characters. These new characters are great. It's actually really different now from what it was in the first 2-3 seasons, because there are only 2 characters left from the first season, and one of them was only a recurring character. So Morgan, who was from the main Walking Dead show, is the lead character now. You've also got another character from the main Walking Dead show who joins the cast this season. This was a disappointing first half of the season. It felt a little aimless at times. Basically, they just crash land here. They're wanting to help people, I get that, but it relies so much on that, and then nothing really happens for a lot of it. Yeah, disappointing. And I really liked last season. I thought it lost its way a bit as it went along, But yeah, Fear the Walking Dead, it feels like they don't really have a goal or focus anymore, and it's trying to be different from the main Walking Dead show. Obviously, I get that, but in doing that, it's not really just catching my interest or my attention all that much, and I can't really put my finger on it because I like the characters, but what the characters are doing just isn't that interesting. So yeah, disappointing. Big Little Lies Season 2. So Big Little Lies, back this season with Meryl Streep in tow. Brilliant season. It continues from the events of last season, which were based on a book, by the way. Now it's not based on a book. And Meryl Streep's character is the mother of Alexander Skarsgård's character from season 1. She's here to basically find out what the hell's going on. You've got these main group of women now who are holding on to the secret of what happened at the end of the last season. They're trying to live with that and move on with their lives. Meanwhile, there's something bad happening to each of them. One character's risking the possibility of a divorce. One character's suffering from all of the guilt that's on her. Then another character's having financial troubles. Then there's another character who's having psychological problems and not being able to sleep and having to cope with having 2 kids and a grandmother who suddenly shows up. So I think it really does a good job of giving each of the characters something to do, something really interesting to do, and a problem that they've got to tackle. The resolution feels a little on the rush side. It feels a little convenient a lot of the times, some of the stuff that's going on. There's one storyline in this season where one character's mother shows up, not Meryl Streep, and then it kind of deals in some sort of like fantastical element a bit, and it doesn't go full on in there, so it's not saying, right, this is a legit thing. But the fact that this is here, the fact that it's going into this direction is it feels out of place in this season. But overall, a really fun, enjoyable show. This is essentially just a soap opera with a big budget now, though. So I hope we get a season 3. I'm interested to see where the season goes. If this is the final season, that's fine. I don't need more, but it would be nice to see what happens next. And yeah, if you like the first season of Big Little Lies, I do recommend this. Catch-22. This is the mini-series by George Clooney and Grant Heslov. At least they're behind the scenes. There's 2 other writers involved whose name I can't remember. Based on the book, it's essentially about a military battalion, an American group in Italy during World War II, and the main character does not want to be there. He does not want to go into this battle. He does not want to go into fight. He does not want to die, essentially. So he's doing everything he can to try and come up with loads of excuses just to get out of combat. And no matter what happens, it keeps twisting around. He keeps getting put back in there. It is a comedy at its core, I would say. There's a lot of funny moments in there, a lot of surprising moments in there. I do recommend the show. It's 6 episodes. They're all about 45 minutes each. It's well done, well directed, well paced. Towards the end of the season, it actually gets really dark and serious, and I'm not going to say what happens, but it goes from being a war show with comedic elements to being more of a war show with dark, twisted tonal elements in there. So it's kind of 2 things, but the actual transition I think is it's good to a point. There is like a sudden point where it's like, oh wow, that's really dark, and I did not expect that in this show. So yeah, that kind of feels a bit out of place. I loved the ending. I liked how it wrapped things up, or did it wrap things up? The characters are likable for the most part, although there's a lot of characters, so there's only really the main group of characters whose names that I actually learnt. So there's the main character who's called Jack or John. Again, I can't remember. That shows everything. But great performance from the main character, how he's constantly scheming and trying to come up with things to get out of the war. There's a lot of good jokes and humour with wordplay and sentences. Kyle Chandler's in there, he's brilliant. George Clooney's in there a little bit, he's good. The other character, Major, yeah, his name is Major. They then think he's the Major, so he gets promoted to being a Major, so he's Major. That's kind of the whole thing with his character. His character's kind of just there. It establishes him early on that maybe he's going to be important, but then he doesn't really do anything throughout the whole show. Hugh Laurie's in there for like 5 minutes. His character kind of shows up, he seems important, and then there's a joke relating to what happens to his character, and overall throughout this season, he's literally probably only in 5 minutes of this show. That's disappointing. So yeah, it is a war story. There is a lot of good comedy in there. It's not an action show. There is some action-y moments in there, but don't expect this to be like a big action TV show. It's more about the psychological effects of war, it's more about the futility of war, and I like the themes that are in there, and I liked how it addressed that. I do kind of recommend it if you're interested, but it's not a must-watch. The Boys Season 1, I've literally just recorded a full review of this, so I think you should go check that out. On the whole, I really liked it. It's not a typical superhero show, it's not a typical comic book show. It's all about subverting your expectations, doing something different, saying, right, what if the superheroes who we all admire and look up to actually have dark, twisted secrets who aren't actually as good as you expect? What if they're more human than you think? So there's this central group of characters who have a grudge against superheroes for one reason or another. I'm not going to say what that is, that's getting into spoilers. So they plan to take down the superheroes in this show who have done them wrong in some way or another, who need to have justice brought to them. It's twisted, it's dark, there's a lot of good humour in there, and the characters are great, really well liked characters. Carl Urban, that's one of the main characters, is brilliant in there. Go read my full review, go watch my full review, sorry, and check out this show. It is a must watch, I would say. It's really good. Final review of the day, Brooklyn Nine-Nine Season 6. So this is the season that we might not have gotten at one point because the show was cancelled. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, a really underrated comedy, I think. It's a brilliant comedy. Andy Samberg, Andrea Bauer, both of them are great. This is just more Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Really well done comedy. It's a feel-good show. Every episode, 21 minutes long, roughly. It's not doing... This season isn't doing anything too special. It's just more of the same, which is kind of all I really wanted from this. And there are some hilarious moments in there. The jokes are fast, they're loose. It's not telling these huge, expansive storylines. Each episode does have a contained storyline. There are little threads here and there that are being stretched out across the season. But yeah, if you don't watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, go watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It is just a feel-good, entertaining comedy show. The characters are great. The actual look of the show I really like as well. So yeah, go check it out. Don't let it get cancelled again. I know we've already gotten another season on the way. So yeah, watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And if you've liked all of the reviews that I've done, I know I've kind of rushed through them a little bit here because I'm running low on time, but subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, some feedback down below, let me know what you thought of all of these shows, and of course you can go to Twitter and Instagram, follow me at @the_Grant Burton. Until next time though, thanks for watching.